welcome to Cooking with Cori. I'm your host, Chef Cori Dern, and I'm also a proud media spokesperson for Foodland, Ontario, where good things grow. And you know what grows in Ontario that's absolutely delicious? Apples. I love me some good Ontario apples. And today, I'm going to show you how to make a really delicious apple dessert that is so easy you're going to be wanting to eat it every single day. This is one pan, stovetop apple crisp. So you can see I've got my pan to be specific. I'm going to put it on to about a medium heat. And for this recipe, you need an apple. So what I've done is I've peeled about 6 cups worth of apples, taken the skin off, sliced them up. In order to stop them from browning, it's a really good idea to put them into lemon water or just spritz them with some lemon juice, and then they will stay nice and white, like you can see right here. For this recipe, I'm also going to be making a really yummy walnut and oat topper. And so that's the thing I want to do first. So first things first, let me get some yummy butter into my pan. That's not too hot, but just hot enough. I don't want it too hot because I just don't want to burn the butter. And this is not one of those recipes where I want to put an oil in the pan alongside of the butter. I just want the butter in the pan. And to this butter, I'm going to stir in my oats. And these oats take only about 4 to 5 minutes to cook if I was making an oatmeal. In this case, I just want to toast them up in the butter. And I'm going to also stir in some walnuts. And I suppose you could use any kind of nut you want. It's really up to you. I'm not going to judge you for whatever nut you choose, but this happens to be really delicious with walnuts. And I'm always saying this to you, that a recipe is just a guideline. Remember that you are the chef at home, and if you don't like a certain something, then turn it into something that you do really enjoy. So I've got my oats, my butter has melted, I've got my walnuts, and to that I'm going to stir in a little bit of maple syrup. I'm going to reserve a little for my apples. There we go. And I'm going to let that chill out a bit. And I'm also going to add just a little bit of cinnamon to this. And you'll notice I'm using the same ingredients for everything that I'm doing because that is the flavor profile that I want to achieve. So this is going to cook for, I'm going to say, about 3 to 4 minutes until it's nice and toasted. And it's already starting to smell so great. Until everything is nice and toasted. And then once it is all nice and toasted, you're going to put it aside. And you're going to let it cool. I'm just going to put this aside right now because even though it's not fully toasted, you know me, I've already got some ready to go that I just did beforehand so that I can show you what it looks like. Now, here's the easy peasy part. In the same pan, I am going to add some more butter. There we go. And I already know that my pan is nice and hot. And I'm going to melt that down. And I'm going to add the rest of my maple syrup. And we know that's Ontario, because Ontario makes the best maple syrup. There we go, because of our maples. And I'm going to add to this the rest of my cinnamon. And just get everything incorporated, just like this. And now I'm going to add my apples, which have been thinly sliced. Again, it's up to you. I mean, the recipe suggests that you slice it like this. I went to foodlandontario.ca and looked up seasonal recipes, and this was a really fun one. And now I'm just going to make sure that my apples are nice and coated in all that butter, maple syrup, cinnamony goodness. And I'm just going to let them hang out because it's going to take probably about 5 minutes for these to get nice and tender. And I definitely want to make sure that they get nice and coated because apples are already nice and sweet and the maple syrup is nice and sweet. And so we don't need to add any more kind of sugar or anything to this because it's already sweet enough. There we go. Aren't they beautiful? There we go. Okay, I'm going to let that just hang out for a bit. Turn it down to about between medium and low because we don't want to brown it. We just want to soften it. And if I wanted to quicken up the softening process, I'd just put a lid on that and let it steam down a bit. Now, once this has cooled and I've toasted it, it will look just like this. Yum! Let me tell you how hard it was for me to not stick my hand into this bowl and just start snarfing it because boy, oh boy, this is tasty. When this is nice and cool, it's ready to use. It's actually fantastic for the dessert that we're making right now, but it's also really great as something that you might want to sprinkle onto yogurt or anything else that you enjoy toasted oats and walnuts on. Very, very flavorful. When this has softened, the next step that I want to do, which is an important one, is make a slurry. And I'm going to make that slurry using apple juice and cornstarch. Now, in other recipes, I've shown how to do a roux, which is equal parts fat and flour. And generally speaking, we're heating up that roux and adding a cold liquid. But for this, it's the reverse. We have our cold apple juice and our cornstarch, and we are adding our cold slurry to our hot apples. And so I'm going to add this to that. And what's going to happen is this is going to thicken up and become really saucy and really beautiful. And that is also going to take probably about 5 minutes for it to get to a really, really, really beautiful state. It's already looking really good. Fortunately for you, I made some already. I'm going to let this hang out, but what I'm going to do is I am going to build a really nice little dessert using this beautiful Ontario apple in our gorgeous cinnamon and maple syrup sauce. If you want this recipe, you know where I'm going to send you. Foodland, Ontario. You know what? It looks so good. I'm just going to add the whole thing to the bowl. And then top it off with some beautiful walnut and cinnamon and maple syrup. And enjoy. Oop, that's even prettier. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Hi, welcome to Cooking with Cori. I'm your host, Chef Cori Dern, and I'm also a proud media spokesperson for Foodland, Ontario. And today I'm making a really, really delicious meal for Foodland, Ontario, and it's a sesame pork, Ontario pork, and Ontario Savoy cabbage stir fry. Yum! Now, because a recipe is a guideline, when you go to foodlandontario.ca and you look for, recipes that include pork, or I'm looking for something that has cabbage and it's this, yummy sustenance, remember that if it says pork, you could use chicken or ground chicken. You could use beef. In today's recipe, I've actually done a combination and got started on it by using half pork and half Ontario pork and half Ontario lean ground beef. So in my pan here, I'm right now just sauteing, breaking down in a little bit of oil just so that nothing sticks, some yummy Ontario ground pork and beef, and making sure that it's completely cooked through. For the rest of my lovely stir fry, I have some Ontario Savoy cabbage, and what I did was I chopped it up. You can do it, in thick strands, you can cut it into chunks, whatever makes you happy. Again, you are the chef at home, so you get to decide. I also have some lovely Ontario mushrooms. I went with button ones, and Ontario carrots. A little secret about carrots. When you're cutting the end off of a carrot, look for that little green ring. If you see that little green ring, it means that your carrot is bitter just right there. So you always want to cut off the end of a carrot just to make sure that there's no little green ring, and then that way you know the rest of the carrot is nice and sweet. Mushrooms, don't run them under water. Get a damp cloth and just wipe off the top, wipe off the dirt. You don't have to submerge them or soak them because then you just end up soaking them in dirty water and nobody wants that. I went with button, but you can go with cremini. Any kind of Ontario mushroom that makes you smile is going to make this meal absolutely enjoyable for you. So this is really, really, really straightforward, she says, sauteing her meat. The first thing I want to do is make my delicious sauce. And so my sauce consists of soy sauce, sesame oil, Ontario honey, and there's an abundance of that, yum. Ontario garlic, and I've got some chili flakes and ground ginger. If you want to use fresh ginger, that's totally up to you. So because I have all these bowls, I always think to myself, what's the thing that is the hardest thing to get out of that bowl? And that's going to be my Ontario honey. So what I want to do is I want to take my honey and keep that as my bottom base. Just make sure this doesn't stick. And to that, I'm going to add my most liquidy thing, which is my soy sauce. And that way I'm not kind of, rushing to try to get everything off the bottom. And I'm going to give that a little stir. Ah, perfection. And then to this, I'm going to add my garlic. And I've got about 4 cloves of minced pureed. I like to use a microplane for my garlic. I just find it's that much easier. And then I've got ground ginger and chili flakes, because if you guys know me, you know that I like it spicy, because that's just the way I roll. And I'm just going to get this all nice and mixed up. And then add my sesame oil for that extra sesame-ness. And I'm just going to let this hang out for a bit. Okay, so now while this is hanging out and letting the flavors develop and my meat is all done, I took the time ahead of time, and I want to be able to show you what I did. I put my carrot and my mushroom and a little bit of oil in my saute pan. And I just had it on medium heat just until the mushrooms started to soften. The carrots did not need to be cooked through because I want them to be tender crisp. If you look at the carrots on here and you look at the mushrooms, you're going to see that they're evenly sliced. That way I guarantee an even cook. If I had big chunks of carrot and little thin bits of mushrooms, there's no way I could cook them together because the mushrooms are going to burn. So I have them pretty even, and all I want to do is make my mushrooms just a little bit soft and the carrots just a little tender crisp. And then once they're nice and tender crisp, that's when I'm going to add my Savoy cabbage. When I add the Savoy cabbage, I'm going to incorporate it into my mushrooms and carrots, and that's going to take about 3 minutes until I add my cabbage. And I'm going to add a little bit of water to that when I'm putting it together, and that will help steam these down so they're nice and soft while keeping it nice and tender crisp. And I'm going to end up with something that looks just beautiful. It's going to look just like this. And so right here I've got a mixture of just the straight up sauteed carrot, sauteed mushroom, and sauteed Savoy cabbage, all lovely and from Ontario. So with this mixture, because I'm the kind of person who likes to season things in stages, I'm going to add a little bit of the sauce that I made right here to the meat and just incorporate it. Oh, it smells so good. I'm going to tell you, never go shopping when you're hungry. Bring a list. I'm always recommending to you folks, you woksies at home, that when you go shopping, shop with intention and purpose. You know, if you want to know if something's in season, because you know that when something is in season, it tastes even better, I'm going to recommend that you go to the OntarioFoodland.ca website, and that's where they have all things that are seasonal. And then that way, if you don't have something that you want in your recipe that's available, there's other suggestions. So to my cooked beef and pork, I'm going to add my lovely cabbage and mushroom and carrot. I think that's a goodly amount. And I'm going to add some more of my sauce. And I am just that person who really likes sauciness, because I'm pretty saucy myself. And so I made extra just in case, which is why I was happy to show you how I made the sauce. And you can see I'm just incorporating everything so it gets all of that beautiful flavor. It's already been cooked, so you can see that it's not overly cooked. It's just tender crisp the way you want it. I'm going to add just a little bit more. And this is lovely. It's salty. It's sweet from the Ontario honey, right? If you want it a little spicier, you can add some more chili flakes, anything that is going to wake up your palate. But I'm going to tell you, this is just beautiful. And now, just to finish it off, I have my plate. And let's get this show on the road. So delicious. If you want this recipe, you know where to go, foodlandontario.ca. You can check out my website, chefcori.com. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, good things grow in Ontario. Hi, welcome to Cooking with Cori. I'm your host, Chef Cori Dern, and I'm also a proud media spokesperson for Foodland, Ontario. And what says Ontario's finest more so than apples? Nothing better than a juicy Ontario apple, let me tell you. And that's why today we are making heart-shaped apple hand pies. Yes, you heard me, heart-shaped apple hand pies. Woohoo! So what do we need for this delicious recipe? We need some beautiful diced Ontario apples, which I happen to have right here. I also need some brown sugar, some cinnamon, some butter, and away we go. So I'm just going to turn on my heat to about medium. I'm going to put some butter into my frying pan and get that going. And once the butter has melted, you can see the pan is nice and hot. The butter is going pretty quickly, melty down. So I think what I will do is I'm going to add my brown sugar and my cinnamon. And, of course, my Ontario apples. And I dice them up. You can, leave the skin on, take the skin off. It's totally up to you. The skin is where all the fiber is, but I'm not going to judge you if you want to peel them. That's what I did. If you're doing this ahead of time, you're going to want to put these lovely, beautiful diced apples into some water with a little bit of lemon, and then that way they will not brown, or else just dice them up quick and then get them into your saute pan, just like you see. I've got this going on right here. So while these are hanging out, it's probably going to take about, I'm going to say about 5 minutes for them to soften and get all beautiful. I'm going to reduce my heat just a little bit so that when they are all softened and ready to be enjoyed, I'm going to take some apple juice, ideally Ontario apple juice, with some cornstarch, and I'm going to make a cornstarch slurry. In fact, I'm going to make my life easier, and I'm going to add the apple juice to the cornstarch. I always like to pick the thing that sticks to the bottom of the bowl. I keep it in the bowl, and then to that I add my liquid so that I'm not fussing with trying to get it out of the bowl. Okay, and that's about a half a cup of Ontario apple juice. And so what I would do is I would be sauteing this for a good, like I said, 3 to 5 minutes on a medium to low heat, because we're not looking to brown them. We're looking to soften them so they get nice and mushy, because that's going to be our beautiful filling for our heart-shaped pie. Okay, so this is hanging out. I would take this lovely slurry, add it to my apples, stir it around, and the heat from the pan is going to make my slurry get nice and thick, and this is what I would end up with. Yum! I'm just going to eat this whole bowl right in front of you because it is so delicious. Look at that. Cinnamon, brown sugar, Ontario apples, apple juice. Yum! Okay, I won't do that. What I will do, though, is make my heart-shaped pie. And you can get a pie crust that you can roll out if you want, and make your own pie crust if you're happy. I happen to have these lids to some pot pies I had made earlier, and I like to, reduce, reuse, recycle. So I've got my heart shape stamp, and what I'm going to do is, there we go, cut out my heart. That sounded wrong, but I'm going to cut out a heart shape. And then with all my pieces, I would continue to roll them out. so that I could have more and more hearts. So I'm going to do 2 big ones, just like this. And then 2 smaller ones because they're just so cute, aren't they? Here we go. And don't worry if your crust kind of separates a bit. You can always use a little bit of water or heat to just re-put it together, just like I'm doing right here. And this one as well. This is a cute little baby one. There we go. Now, I took the time to make the apples ahead of time because you definitely want your mixture to be nice and cool before you add it to your pastry. So I'm just going to turn that down. And what I want to do first is I want to take my egg wash and I want to make sure that I cover the edges of my heart, because that way I will make sure that it seals nicely. And if you can, take a step ahead and flour your fork so that way it doesn't stick to your pie crust either. So here we go. And I'm going to take my beautiful filling and plop that into the center. There we go. And I'm only going to do it onto one side. And flip over my heart. There we go. And use my floured fork just to set the edges. Just like that. And I put it onto a parchment-lined cookie sheet, and away we go. Now could do the same with this one. I'll do that a little later. But once we are finished with making our beautiful hearts, we just take a little bit of egg wash. You don't have to go crazy with it, just a little bit on top. And then bake it until it is beautiful and golden brown. I'm going to encourage you to go to the website, go to foodlandontario.ca, and that way you can download the recipe and know about the proper cooking times and measurements. And to this, I've got some icing sugar, which I happen to love. And you can use milk or water. And I'm just going to mix this together. All right. Now this is looking good. This is how we want our icing sugar to look. Fantastic. All right. So now I'm going to use a spoon. And I just want to kind of get an idea of how it's going to pour. And here we go. Doing nice little drizzle on top. You can be as fancy as you want to be. Make any kind of design. This is where your inner artist comes through. I'm just going to do like a little drizzle. Thicker on these. So beautiful. If you want this recipe, I'd love for you to go to foodlandontario.ca or check me out at chefcori.com. Thanks for watching. And remember, good things grow in Ontario. See you next time.